Hello and welcome to the Food Freedom Podcast. This is a podcast to help you find peace with food and to overcome disordered eating. And I'm Harriet Frew, aka the Food Freedom Coach. And I'm really excited to share with you lots of tips, stories and guest interviews in helping you on your journey in finding peace with food. So thank you so much for listening today. Now today I'm really excited to have another guest on the show. And today I have Josie Buck, who is the Mindful Cook. Now Josie is a food and eating psychology coach, and Josie has been on her own journey in moving away from dieting and finding her own peaceful relationship with food. And she now helps other women to change the way they relate to food and their bodies. Josie runs online courses, award-winning retreats, workshops and coaching programs. Now I hope you really enjoy this interview. Thank you so much to Josie for coming on. And enjoy. Hi there, Josie, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Hi there, thank you for having me, Harriet.
So, Josie, tell me a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah, so I am a food and eating psychology coach, and my business is the Mindful Cook. And so through my business, I run food and wellbeing retreats for women and online courses, all kind of designed to help women to improve their relationship with food and with their bodies.
It sounds fantastic. So, Josie, how have you been coping with the lockdown? I know we're sort of moving out of it a bit now, but how's it been going for you?
It's been an interesting time, hasn't it, really? I think mostly quite well, but like many people, it's been up and down. I think everybody's had their own struggles through this. Everybody's had to face their own difficulties, haven't they? Most of the time I work from home work-wise, so it's been kind of quite easy. There's been no transition, if you like, from a working point of view, but I've definitely missed having contact with friends and family and just that kind of feeling of being a little bit isolated at times, you know. But generally we've coped okay. I think possibly one of the toughest things that we've had to do is we postponed our wedding. We were meant to be we were actually meant to be getting married, ironically, this coming weekend, so July the 4th.
Oh.
So kind of the extra layer of interest, you know, the interesting bit about it was it's literally, isn't it, just as we're kind of coming out of it. So now we're hearing stories that, oh yeah, everything's reopening on July the 4th. But we had to make the call, you know, a good few weeks back to postpone it. And I definitely think it was the right thing to do. Given the way that things are. But yeah, that was pretty tough.
Oh, they're really tough. So are you going to, when have you postponed it to? Like, do you have a new date?
Yeah, we do. So it took us a while, to be honest with you, because I was thinking, wanted it to be the summer. And then I just kind of I thought, it could rain. And actually, I think it might rain next weekend, which I will be doing a jump for joy little dance on that occasion. But then, so we just kind of thought it really doesn't matter if it's the summer because everybody's rearranging for next summer. So we picked a date in October next year when hopefully it, will be well shot of all this. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, sure. And hopefully that goes kind of long enough, doesn't it, for us to be well and truly out of the pandemic.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's been a real adjustment though, hasn't it? Like, I guess, particularly like with something like a wedding, and I'm sure you've probably been planning and looking forward to that for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but then I guess what I did, I did that kind of process of putting it into context and thinking, you know what, there's a lot of people that are in a worse situation, people who've got loved ones in hospital, all those kind of terrible things that people have had to cope with during this time, that it kind of put it in perspective a little bit. But yeah, we've got all the upside was I'm thinking I've got so much more time now to prepare for it. So there's an upside, isn't there, to everything, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And you're so right. I think, if you've been fortunate enough to kind of like not get the virus, and, I think the kind of part of the world we're in lockdown and it being the nice weather and everything, we've been really quite fortunate, haven't we? There's lots of people that have had it a lot worse.
Yeah, exactly.
So Josie, I know you've been on your own journey in overcoming issues with food and body image. So can you tell us a bit about this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was younger, my mum, bless her, was always dieting. It was a thing in our house. In the diet, we had the book on it in our house. And, I guess as a child, I observed her her self-esteem was always incredibly low. And I think it's fueled by that notion, and still that societal norm, isn't it, that our size, our shape and our appearance really determine so much our value in life, our health, all of these kind of things. And I really watched her suffer and battle with her own body. She was constantly scrutinizing her body, always, seeking approval when she was trying things on and all that kind of stuff. And I guess I learned through that in a way, and I learned that her body was never acceptable as it was to her, and saw it as something that really, really she battled with all of her life. Ironically, she loved food. She was a great cook, still is, and was always baking and cooking. So the house was always full of great food, but there was always this constant conflict, within her around food and what she could allow herself to have and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I went through my young adulthood, certainly through my teens and early 20s, scrutinizing my own appearance, hiding behind a wall of makeup. I was into makeup from a really early age. And, right into my 30s, to be quite honest with you. And I can always refer to it as being stuck in the revolving doors of weight loss clubs. I was in that of weight loss clubs all through my 20s and well into my 30s. So, yeah, it kind of set the tone, if you like. And I struggled for years. It affected my relationships. It certainly, my sense of self-worth was pretty low, let's say, throughout my early years.
Sure. Which sounds so tough, doesn't it? Because I guess your mum was clearly struggling a lot with her own issues with self-esteem and body image. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because I guess, unconsciously, really, she's not intending to pass these messages on to you, but she's your kind of primary female role model, isn't she? And it's not surprising that you're going to kind of pick up on those things, because that kind of becomes your normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I look back at her history, she had quite an abusive relationship, I think, with her father, and all of these kind of things. But I think if you look back at that generation and ours to a great extent, the diet and fashion industry have a great deal to answer for, I think. And women's bodies have always, been objectified in this way. And it takes an awful lot for us to push back on that, doesn't it? So it wasn't, that obviously was happening with my mum, but they're the stories that you're getting from everywhere else as well, aren't they? Through the media,
Yeah.
through all of that stuff. You're just surrounded by it constantly. So yeah.
No, sure. I mean, it's so true, isn't it? And I think seeing, I've got my daughter at the moment who's 14, and obviously I'm trying my best to really role model a healthy relationship with food and body image, but it shocked me actually, the power of the media still, because I kind of thought, oh, she's going to be fine. But how naive was I, really? These messages are
hard.
so powerful.
Yeah, it's a lot for young women to cope with, particularly now social media's around. You think about when we were younger, it was, TV and magazines, and now it's so much bigger than that, isn't it? And it's being fed through our mobile phones and everything else as well. So yeah, I think we've got quite a job to do to help young women.
Yeah, so absolutely. So was there a turning point for you in kind of, overcoming these issues and beginning to turn things around?
Yeah, so I guess I always felt like I was wearing the wrong shoes. It sounds like a funny analogy, but I felt like, I was painfully self-conscious. And I think really, so very early on, I took some counselling, and it kind of uncovered a load of stuff around my relationship with her mum and all the things that we just talked about. But then I kind of got into my 40s, and I was in quite a successful career in TV and marketing at that time. And I just kind of started to lose interest with it, to be honest with you. I was feeling really unfulfilled, and I was kind of beginning to realise that I wanted to be doing something else with my life. And I think really what happened to me was I changed my career, and that was kind of part of my path towards healing myself as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I made quite a big decision around my early 40s to kind of quit my job, sell my house, and do something quite different. And it was all inspired really by the fact that I had gone on a little yoga break with a good friend of mine to this beautiful kind of retreat for women in Norfolk when I was still in my corporate career. And I kind of found myself sitting around the table at this place. All these women were eating communally, and they were all talking about their stories, their relationship with food, and most of it evolved around that, self-perception, all of those kind of conversations. I think when you get women together in those kind of contexts, we talk quite openly, and it was quite magical for me. And I think that really sparked something in me. I didn't realise it at the time, that
Yeah.
made me think, I need to change things up a bit in my life. So essentially that's what happened. I kind of quit my job, sold up my house. I was still, I was still Weight Watchers and Slimming World right into my late 30s.
Yeah.
But always had this love for food. I loved cooking. The one thing I loved the most in the world was having a house full of people and cooking a big meal for everybody. So again, I was kind of had this internal conflict around those things as well. And when I gave up my job, I kind of went and lived at my parents again in my 40s, lived in the shed at the bottom of their garden, much my father was like, absolute amazement. What are you doing with your life? But I had up to that point in my life, because I think when I look back on it now, I realise that it really did affect my relationships. I didn't have any dependents. I didn't have a partner at that time. I was very much a career girl, very much single. And I just kind of woke up one day and thought, you know what, I've never taken a career break. I've never stepped outside of work since I graduated. I've kind of got all this stuff that doesn't really mean much to me. It was kind of that, call it midlife crisis, if you like. I can do something here. Maybe I could sell my house and create some space in my life where I can decide really what it is that I want to do. And it really was that. It was quite an epiphany, really. And I went to stay at my parents', and my parents lived a few miles away from this place that I've just spoken about, this yoga retreat. And I just decided that I would just, I thought, right, I'm just going to go knock on the door one day and see if she wants me to clean the toilets. I don't care what I want, what I do. I didn't need the money. I just wanted to do something completely different from what I've been doing. And I guess in a way I wanted to be inspired,
Yeah.
So I did. I went and knocked on the door one weekend. I'd kind of finished working in the May, and this was the early July, so I didn't leave much time between. And it was really, really busy there. And she opened the door and she said, "Can you cook?" And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, actually I can. And I'd done my health and hygiene certificate. I had this wonderful opportunity to talk to women every night around the table, about their relationship with food and their bodies and their life experiences. And it made me realise that that's what I needed to do. I needed to bring my love for food together with a deeper understanding of what happens for many of us around food, and use that to help women to, make sense of things and to improve their quality of life and feel better in their own skin. And that's when I studied eating psychology. I took up my study of eating psychology whilst I was there, did my diploma, and then kind of thought, the food thing, I want to do a bit more with that, and then went on to study applied nutrition. Okay. And in that process, it kind of healed me. It taught me so much. It inspired me so much as well. It made me realise, gosh, if other women could learn this stuff, it would help them too. So that's kind of how it happened. Long story short.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, it's wonderful that you found like that career that obviously gives you like so much meaning and purpose. And I guess, at the time it's such a brave step really, just to step away from that kind of, I guess, like what looked like a really sort of successful career. But it sounds like your heart was really kind of pulling you in a different direction, wasn't it? And
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it takes you a while to work it out, at that time I really didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to be doing. And I think there's also something else around, once you stop focusing on what you don't want in your life and you start placing your focus on the stuff that you do want, it makes it a lot easier to get there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, really, really true. And I think it's just helpful for anyone listening, actually, isn't it? Because I think sometimes we are just waiting for that complete kind of Damascus moment, but it is often a bit more messy, isn't it? It's kind of you kind of have a gut feeling about the direction you want to be going in, but you don't really know how you're going to do it, or what's going to get you there, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Josie, tell me a bit more about the work you do with your clients.
Yes, so it was back in 2017. I was still at the retreat, and how it started was ladies were kind of coming in and saying, if you did a food retreat, we would come. If you did something of your own, we would come. So it started with retreats. So I started out in November 2017 doing food retreats. Started off with 8 guests in that November, and it all started, and we just did some mindful food preparation and things like that. And we just spent the weekend together. We shared our stories, and I did a bit of coaching within that. And that's kind of where it started. And then I was doing 4 retreats a year. And then I got my coaching qualification as part of my diploma, and then started doing one-to-one coaching. And then I kind of realised, well, I just felt drawn to doing online courses, if I'm honest, for 2 reasons, really. One was to kind of be able to help more people, but also because I was working a lot of nights still at the retreats, and people wanted to talk in the evenings, which was kind of quite difficult at times. So, it was really that drove me. So the way that I work is that I now do 2 food and wellbeing retreats a year. They're residential retreats that over a weekend where we get to connect. I get to meet lots of lovely ladies, and we get to talk, and I do a bit of coaching, and there's some yoga, and it's all about mind, body, food, that kind of union, if you like. And I do online courses now. So I do 2 short courses, one that is in, building nutritious dinners, and the other one is overcome emotional eating. And then I do a combined coaching and online course program, which at this point in time, now we're speaking, is called the Healthy Mind, Healthy Body program. But I'm thinking, we were just talking about this before recording, that I'm changing that. I'm going to evolve that a bit this year and restart that again in September. So retreats and online courses with a mix of some group coaching in there as well.
Sure. And so with your courses as well, are they, so with your kind of signature program, does that have an element of some contact with you, or are they kind of courses that you completely download and can work on independently?
Yeah, so the shorter courses are you work independently, but that said, I'm in touch. So through email on those programs. But the bigger program is an online course and group coaching program. So it's an 8-week program that I coach in weekly in a closed kind of membership group, which I love. I love that course because it's quite immersive and it's very interactive in that sense. So yeah, bit of both.
Bit of both. Fantastic. So how do you like to find this healthy balance with food and exercise in your life today?
Yeah, I guess I'm quite lucky because I work from home. I always think back to the time, when I was corporate and stuck at a desk, and you're kind of time limited, aren't you, for when you can fit things in. But now I work from home, I just make sure that I have a daily ritual around those things, because I know what gets me fired up, and it has to get my head in the right space.
Yeah.
And I have to, and to do that, I move my body, and I also do little things like, journaling, or writing notes, those kind of things that just help me get my head and my body in the right space. So I have a little ritual every day, which is mostly either I get out in nature and I have a good walk, or I do a bit of yoga, those kind of things. So that kind of keeps me ticking over. And I find that the days that I don't do it, I do know that I haven't done it, when things get too busy. And I think, I just haven't got time to fit that in. But actually, I know that if I don't do that, I'm never anywhere near as productive.
Sure. No, it's so true, isn't it? And it sounds like, you just tried to really make it kind of a habit, haven't you, almost? Because, sometimes it's doing those things, isn't it, that we know that are going to kind of be helpful and effective, are going to boost our mood, etc., even if we don't always kind of have the motivation for them every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing actually that's worth mentioning between us here is that I used to do the movement thing. I used to be motivated to do movement because I wanted to change my body. But now I've realised there's been such a change that now I do that stuff because I recognise how much benefit I get in my mind from it. It really puts my head in a different space. So there's definitely been a change of the way that I think about movement and my practice in that way.
Yeah, no, sure. That sounds really good to hear. And what do you think as well about, how can we support young people more, in kind of growing up in this kind of world of social media and so many kind of negative influences? How do you think we can help them have a better relationship with food and their bodies today?
Yeah, we were talking about this before we came on as well, weren't we? And I just think we really do have to get the kind of people that are taking up space in those places online to take responsibility for the agenda, to really start to make a difference through the stories that they tell. But also when I look back, I think about, my experience at school, and everybody learns English and maths and all that kind of stuff, don't they? But nobody teaches you about your emotional health.
Yeah.
Nobody gives you, a solid background. And that stuff is so important. Just getting some simple emotional health topics onto the curriculum, because actually, ultimately, that's entirely what it's about, isn't it? It's about being able to, help ourselves out in the way that we think about things and the way that we perceive things. And that is so, so important. So, yes, influencing the agenda, both in schools, on the curriculum, getting that stuff on the curriculum, but also getting influencers to take more responsibility, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true, isn't it? And I just think actually those two, focusing on those two areas, it would have such a significant effect. Because I think as well, in schools, if you're learning that kind of emotional regulation stuff early on, you're much more kind of open, I think, and you're going to absorb stuff younger, aren't you? Like, because I know I work with adults, and often so much of from 18 upwards, and often so much of kind of their mental programming is quite set really from what's been based on, and it's getting in that early is just so key, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's quite simple stuff, isn't it? And if you get in at an early age, then it becomes second nature, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So true. Yeah, it needs to be in there like maths and English, doesn't it?
Yes, it
really does. Okay, Josie, final quick fire questions. So what would be your last supper 3-course meal?
So this is going to probably sound quite boring, but I love just good old plain English fish and chips. The best fish and chips, and it would have to be at the seaside with the fresh air, fish and chips sat on the front there, and I'd follow it up with a very nice ice cream.
Oh yeah, they're lovely. So, and how do you like your fish and chips? Do you have salt and vinegar or?
Oh yeah, salt and vinegar, definitely. Nice crispy batter, lovely, perfect.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Simple pleasures.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a favourite quote or mantra?
I do. I have a quote that often comes into my mind because I think it so relates to everything that I believe in and the work that I do. And it's actually an Einstein quote. Okay. And it is that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. And to me, it just says everything about, in order to affect change in our lives, we need to change our thought processes and kind of quit the thinking that no longer serves us. It's that we kind of have to rethink things a little bit. And I love that. Quote.
Yeah, no, it's really powerful, isn't it? And I think we're all guilty of like getting stuck in a rut, aren't we? And in a way, just doing the same thing, but even like pushing harder and getting it back in the same place again and being frustrated.
Yes. Exactly. Good old Einstein.
So tell us something about you that may surprise us.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I think it would have to be that, probably not very good now because it's probably evolved quite a lot, but I do a bit of sign language. And that is because both of my father's parents were deaf. So he communicated with his parents completely through sign language, which I find fascinating.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. So when I was younger, he taught me a bit. I say that it's probably a bit wooden now, but I can do a little bit of sign language, which is lovely.
Yeah, no, sure. No, great skill to have. So where can people find you if they, want to know more about you and your courses, etc.? Where do people find you?
Yeah, great. So my website is themindfulcook.co.uk, and I'm also very active on Instagram, and I'm just themindfulcook.co.uk, and on Facebook as well. Sometimes get a little bit confused with the mindful chef, so that's one to watch out for. But themindfulcook.co.uk, and you'll find me there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Josie, for sharing all that great information and for coming on the podcast today. And I'm sure people will go and check you out, and I will, make sure all those links are in the show notes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Harriet. It's been lovely talking to you.
So hope you really enjoyed this episode, and do go and check out Josie online and find out all about her online courses and retreats. So if you're not following me already, do seek me out on Instagram at The Food Freedom Coach. And for regular blogs and insights and updates straight to your mailbox, do sign up for my weekly mail list at foodfreedomcoach.co.uk. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.